during Season 1 of House of the Dragon. During a small council meeting, Rhaenyra makes the offer to Alicent of betrothing her eldest son and heir, Jacaerys Velaryon, to Alicent and Viserys' daughter, Helaena. Rhaenyra puts forward this olive branch to Alicent as an attempt to bring the two sides of the family together and somewhat seemingly end the succession dispute, with Helaena one day being queen consort, with her and Jace's children, and thus Alicent's grandchildren, one day sitting the Iron Throne. While I do think this offer was in fact made in good faith by Rhaenyra, the truth is it would have done very little to avoid the Dance of the Dragons, in the sense the match is being proposed by Rhaenyra according to her own worldview on succession, a view of succession that fundamentally goes against the ideology the Greens are fighting for by pushing Aegon's claim to the throne. So while I do think Rhaenyra was trying to find a peaceful solution with this match, it really does highlight that by this point the Dance of the Dragons was all but inevitable. Now, for simplicity, we are going to treat Jace as a Velaryon and not a strong bastard, simply because if this pact was to ever be accepted by the Greens, in turn it would mean them accepting Rhaenyra's children as true-born Velaryons. If they did agree to this pact, then at a later date pressed Aegon's claim, with one of the key pillars of it being the fact that Rhaenyra's children are bastards, you would by association be claiming Helaena was married to a bastard, and therefore any of her own children were also the children of a bastard. Hence why Rhaenyra may have been keen to push this idea, even if the likelihood of Alicent accepting the proposal was slim, in the unlikely event that Alicent did in fact agree to the match, or perhaps Viserys, if he was more strong-willed than of a sound mind, forced the matter through. It could quash the Greens' ability to use her children's true parentage as one of their bases for Aegon's claim. But the truth is, this is only one of the minor reasons as to why this pact would never have worked. Rhaenyra's claim to the throne comes from Viserys using his unchecked power as king by naming her his heir rather than Daemon, while Aegon's claim comes from the concept of male primogeniture and hundreds of years of precedent as supported by the ruling of the Great Council of 101 AC, which is why Viserys even became king in the first place. Now, putting aside any argument as to who was in the right of the matter, as that is not the point of this video, the main reason why this match between Jacaerys and Helaena does very little to stop the civil war or merge the rival claims simply comes down to the fact that if we follow the ideology in terms of succession law that the Greens are effectively fighting for, a match between Jacaerys and Helaena does little to bring the rival claims of Aegon and Rhaenyra together. If the match happened, not only would Helaena be a queen consort, in the eyes of many of the Greens and their belief in male primogeniture, marrying Helaena to Rhaenyra's heir does not lessen or stop Aegon's own claim to the Iron Throne. You then have to consider if the match did happen, you are effectively handing Helaena over to your rival faction. There could be a circumstance where she is used as a sort of political prisoner during Rhaenyra's ascension to the Iron Throne in an attempt to stop any claim from Aegon. While on paper, the match does seem like an olive branch, hoping to bridge the gap between the families, it was never going to address the bigger issues at hand. There was going to be no clear parity involved where anyone was going to move from their position. Viserys was adamant Rhaenyra was his chosen heir. Rhaenyra too was never going to back down from her claim, especially given the Aegon's prophecy angle added into the show. And the likes of Otto and Alicent were never going to back down from Aegon's own claim. Otto who was seeking power, and Alicent who believes Rhaenyra as queen puts the life of her children forfeit. The best way to address this is to analyse what it is the Greens actually want, and would Helaena as queen consort and her future child as king or queen reach those goals? Obviously, as the faction is made up of multiple people, all with their own wants and needs. Thus, this question has several answers depending on the member of the faction we are talking about. Otto wants the control of the Iron Throne and a pro-Hightower monarch, while Alicent wants her own children safe, which is the main fear that Otto has installed in her for many years by this point. And in truth, those fears shouldn't be unfounded. While Rhaenyra personally might not be a direct risk to Aegon, Aemond, Helaena and Daemon, there are people around her and other lords who could easily take action to protect Rhaenyra's claim on her behalf. Additionally, Important for framing the analysis is the several other High Lords who have shown a marked preference for male primogeniture, even despite their oaths to Rhaenyra, and even at the time the betrothal was proposed, there were countless lords up and down Westeros whose preference was male primogeniture, and even more when you consider the implication of the Great Council of 101. So does Jace marrying Helaena address the Green's desires? The answer seems to me it's very unlikely. If Rhaenyra and then Jace inherit the throne, that's 2 generations, where Otto is presumably kept away from the throne, and who knows what could happen during that time. He will likely die before his great-grandchildren would inherit the throne. Moreover, this hypothetical child would only be a quarter Hightower, raised away from Oldtown and the Hightower influence, and with no reason to favour their distant cousins in Oldtown over their closer Velaryon and Targaryen kin and their heritage and influence. Otto agreeing to this betrothal only works if you think he's motivated by his blood being on the throne, rather than the benefits associated with his kin in that position of power. In terms of Alicent's concerns about her children's safety, I'm not sure how a marriage between Jacaerys and Helaena makes anyone more safe. Helaena would be under Rhaenyra's direct control, and should conflict break out, become an immediate political prisoner. Nor does this marriage eliminate the threat Alicent's sons pose to Rhaenyra. They are still legitimate sons of a previous king. They might get ideas themselves in years to come, when they reach adulthood. Their sons may get ideas, or other vassals may act on their behalf, using them as an excuse to further their own political goals. For example, look at the Blackfyre rebellions as a perfect example of the kind of situation that this could lead to, and how many generations of Blackfyres attempted to make a claim on the Iron Throne. Thus, why Alicent's children were always going to be a threat to Rhaenyra's descendants. Moreover, Rhaenyra is arguing for a precedent that allows the monarch to name their own heir. Doing this, in some ways, significantly devalues any marriage alliance with the eldest son, because it can no longer be guaranteed that son will remain heir if the king or queen can choose whatever child or even family member they want to follow them. Rhaenyra at any point could decide to name one of her other children heir in Jace's stead. For example, if we assume Rhaenyra could still end up marrying Daemon, I could see a possibility of Daemon strongly advocating his own son with Rhaenyra, Aegon, being heir over Jacaerys to serve his own self-interests. Rhaenyra's offer only works if there is trust between all parties. Unfortunately, that trust has been personally and systematically undermined time and time again by both sides of the argument. The dance of the dragons between the Greens and the Blacks would only be avoided if everything in this plan went perfectly, if everything goes according to plan. And frankly, nothing in politics, especially Westerosi politics, ever goes perfectly to plan. And in the background of all of this is the wild card that is Daemon Targaryen, as we don't know how this marriage pact would affect the future, and if Rhaenyra would even end up marrying Daemon. Who knows what he could get up to as a third party in the succession debate. Also then, have to try and factor in that even if Daemon did end up married to Rhaenyra, that his deep-rooted personal dislike for Otto and the Hightowers in general is bound to impact the stability of any shaky alliance, a marriage between Jacaerys and Helaena. In truth, the only way a marriage pact between the factions was ever going to fix any of these issues and keep most of the parties happy is if Aegon and Rhaenyra had in fact married as Otto Hightower had suggested. Yes, in the show it's a hell of a lot less practical to do that than in the books given the age gaps, but the reality is Aegon marrying Rhaenyra, or Rhaenyra having a daughter she names heir and marrying her to Aegon is likely the only way via marriage to really prevent the dance. Other than just being an olive branch between the two old friends, a marriage pact between Jacaerys and Helaena really would have achieved very little.